The Galactic Council convened in its majestic hall, a place of serene deliberation where star-spanning empires made decisions that shaped the galaxy. The representatives from a dozen powerful species sat in their ornate seats, radiating calm authority. Conversations drifted lazily across the chamber as they discussed routine matters, trade disputes, minor skirmishes on the borders, and other unremarkable concerns. Humanity? An elder alien scoffed, the question dripping with disdain as it was raised briefly. Barely relevant. They've shown no growth for centuries. A collective chuckle echoed through the room, dismissing the mention of the human race as if it were a mild joke, unworthy of serious discussion. To them, humans were little more than an annoyance, a species that hadn't contributed anything substantial since their initial contact centuries ago. Primitive, weak, and overly emotional, they weren't considered a threat or a power that deserved attention. They still rely on basic technologies, struggling to make any real advancements, one council member added. Their diplomatic presence is token at best. They're no more dangerous than the animals on their planet. The council's representatives nodded in agreement, their arrogance palpable. Humanity had been overlooked for so long that they had become an afterthought. Meanwhile, the galaxy had grown more connected, with alliances, trade routes, and powerful fleets patrolling every corner. To the council, humanity was a relic, incapable of rising to the grand stage of galactic politics. Far from the council's chamber, on a distant colony, the humans were experiencing a very different reality. The colony, nestled in an unremarkable system on the outskirts of human space, had been attacked by the Hescarans, a minor but aggressive species with a taste for territorial expansion. The Hescarans had claimed the planet without warning, wiping out its human inhabitants with ruthless efficiency. When the news reached the council, it was deemed insignificant, another minor border skirmish, one that didn't merit intervention. After all, what was the loss of a human colony compared to the vastness of the galaxy? It was little more than a footnote in the daily briefing, something that barely registered on the council's radar. Human ambassadors, desperate and furious, arrived at the council, seeking justice. They pleaded for action, for sanctions, for the council to recognize the attack as an atrocity. But their pleas were met with cold indifference. To the council, this was just another minor issue, another species fighting over territory. Humanity's voice held no weight in this room of elder races. A tall, gaunt representative from the council sighed as the human ambassador continued to plead. We do not interfere in these minor conflicts. Your losses, while unfortunate, are not of galactic concern. The human ambassador's face twisted in anger, but they held their tongue. There was no point in arguing further. The message was clear, the council did not care. Humanity was on its own. The ambassador left, their face set in grim determination, knowing this would not be forgotten. But the council did not know what was brewing beneath the surface. Humanity, scorned and ignored for too long, had not been sitting idle. They had been quietly advancing, hidden from the prying eyes of the galaxy, focusing on their own survival. Their technology, their military, their understanding of the universe had grown far beyond what the council had ever imagined. For centuries, humans had been dismissed, and in that time, they had transformed. While other races focused on diplomacy and commerce, humans prioritized something else: preparedness. They had experienced hardship and war on their own world, and now, in the vast expanse of the galaxy, they knew they had to rely on their own strength. Their evolution had been shaped not by a need for approval but by the necessity to survive in an unforgiving galaxy. In the quiet halls of their research stations, hidden from the Council's surveillance, humanity had been building. Their military had been designed to be adaptive, far beyond what the rest of the galaxy understood. Their scientists had been working on technologies that even the most advanced species hadn't considered. Their shipyards, though small, had been producing vessels that would make any other fleet seem obsolete. The Council had no idea that humanity had grown into something far more dangerous than they could ever comprehend. For the humans, the destruction of their colony was the final insult, the last act of arrogance the galaxy would inflict upon them. They didn't seek to conquer. They didn't desire revenge for the sake of it. But they had made one thing clear in their own halls: no one would ever threaten their existence again. They had no interest in galactic domination, but justice, for their people and their place in the galaxy, would be theirs, no matter the cost. As the Council continued its discussions, dismissing humanity as it always had, something had already shifted. The human fleet, hidden and prepared for this very moment, was on the move. The galaxy, still blind to what was coming, would soon witness the full extent of humanity's evolution. And this time, the Council would be forced to pay attention. In the shadows, humanity had evolved in ways the Galactic Council had never anticipated. Ignored, ridiculed, and underestimated, humans had no choice but to focus on their own survival. The galaxy at large remained unaware of the relentless drive that had shaped human progress. While other species basked in their technological supremacy, humanity, on the fringes of galactic civilization, grew stronger. The destruction of their colony had only accelerated this transformation. In the secret depths of human space, vast research facilities worked day and night, shielded from prying eyes. Advanced artificial intelligence systems operated in tandem with human ingenuity, pushing boundaries that no other race had dared to approach. This wasn't just an arms race, it was a race for survival. For centuries, humanity had hidden its greatest achievements. They had learned early on that the Galactic Council, with all its superiority, could never be trusted. So, they concealed their advancements, sharing only basic technologies while keeping their real capabilities buried deep. The galaxy had no idea what humanity had become. Their fleet wasn't built for show, nor for the purpose of parading strength. Every ship was designed with a singular focus: survival. Each vessel in the hidden human armada was built using materials and technologies that the Council didn't even know existed. Ships capable of cloaking themselves, weapons that could tear through shields designed to withstand supernovas, engines that could leap vast distances in the blink of an eye. All of it created with meticulous care, driven by the cold reality that the galaxy had always been hostile to them. These ships weren't massive hulks like the ones favored by other empires. They didn't rely on sheer size to intimidate. Human vessels were sleek, efficient, with adaptive AI that made them nearly invincible in battle. The galaxy thought in terms of overwhelming numbers and brute force, but humanity had moved beyond that. Speed, precision, and adaptability were their weapons now. But even more than the ships themselves, it was the minds behind them that made humanity truly dangerous. Their scientists, engineers, and tacticians worked in perfect unison, always thinking one step ahead. Humans were a species born in conflict, on a planet where survival wasn't guaranteed. That struggle had forged them into something the galaxy had never encountered before, a race that didn't fear extinction, because they had already faced it countless times in their history. As the fleet neared completion, the human leadership held quiet meetings, devoid of the bureaucracy and endless debate that plagued the Galactic Council. They had learned from the Council's failures, from the endless squabbling and inaction. Their leaders knew that time was short, and they were prepared to act decisively. It wasn't long before the final preparations began. Fleets were positioned on the borders of human space, ready to strike if needed, but remaining cloaked and hidden. Human intelligence networks had infiltrated even the most secure parts of the galaxy, quietly gathering data on every major power, every potential threat. The Council had no idea how deeply humanity had embedded itself in their systems, how much they already knew. At the heart of this transformation was the belief that they could no longer afford to rely on the goodwill of others. Diplomacy had failed. The Council had ignored their pleas for help, dismissed their suffering, and turned a blind eye to their struggles. Now, humanity would take matters into its own hands. The galaxy had taught them one simple truth: no one cared about humanity's survival but humanity itself. The decision was made quietly, without fanfare or grand announcements. The human fleet would reveal itself when the time was right, and only then. They didn't need to boast or threaten, their actions would speak for themselves. The Council had seen humanity as weak and inferior for far too long, but that perception was about to change forever. Their evolution wasn't just technological, it was philosophical. Humanity had always been adaptable, always capable of changing to meet new challenges. Now, in the face of the galaxy's indifference, they had transformed into something unrecognizable to those who once looked down on them. The galaxy still believed in the old ways, politics, alliances, and treaties, but humanity had moved past such things. For them, it was simple: they would never again be at the mercy of another species. As the final ships were readied, the commanders of the human fleet knew what was coming. They knew the galaxy would be shocked, terrified even, by what they were about to witness. But they also knew that this was the only way forward. The Council's arrogance had forced their hand. Humanity had no desire for war, but they would not hesitate to defend themselves. And this time, they wouldn't wait for permission. The human fleet, hidden in the depths of space, was ready. Every ship, every weapon, every plan had been carefully calculated. They wouldn't march blindly into battle. They wouldn't seek revenge through reckless destruction. This was about sending a message: humanity was no longer to be ignored. Their survival was guaranteed, and any threat would be met with a response so overwhelming that no one would dare challenge them again. The galaxy was still unaware of the storm approaching. But soon they would learn. The reports arrived first as rumors, whispers of an unidentified fleet moving through the outer systems, too large and organized to be mere pirates or smugglers. At first, the Galactic Council paid little attention. With countless species and factions scattered across the galaxy, ships were always on the move. But as more reports flooded in, each more alarming than the last, concern began to spread. This fleet, whatever it was heading directly toward the Council's core systems, and it was unlike anything they had ever seen. Panic started to seep into the Council chambers, but still, they clung to their arrogance. How could this unknown force pose any real threat? They had the most advanced fleets, the greatest defenses, and the backing of the most powerful species in the galaxy. There was no need for alarm, at least, that's what they told themselves. The idea that humanity could be behind it was too ridiculous to even consider. The humans were a small, insignificant race. Surely, they didn't have the resources to muster such a fleet. Surely, they couldn't challenge the Council. Then came the first strike. Without warning, a human fleet emerged from hyperspace near a key Council military outpost. The outpost, heavily fortified and designed to withstand even the largest armadas, was obliterated within moments. The human ships moved with a precision that was terrifying to behold, their weapons cutting through the outpost's defenses as if they weren't even there. It wasn't just the destruction that shocked the Council, it was the speed, the efficiency, and the sheer power behind it. The outpost had sent a distress signal the moment the attack began, but by the time reinforcements arrived, there was nothing left. The human fleet had already moved on, leaving nothing but debris in their wake. The Council, for the first time, was forced to confront the reality they had so long ignored. Humanity had become something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. As the Council scrambled to assess the situation, another strike followed. This time, it was a military convoy, transporting critical supplies between systems. The convoy, escorted by some of the finest ships in the Council's navy, was annihilated before they even had a chance to defend themselves. The humans didn't just overpower them, they outmaneuvered them. Their ships seemed to anticipate every move, every defensive measure, with a level of precision that no Council fleet had ever encountered. It became clear that this wasn't just a rogue faction or a minor uprising. This was an organized, calculated assault, and it was aimed directly at the heart of the Council's power. The realization hit hard: humanity wasn't seeking negotiation or reconciliation. They were delivering a message, and it was one the Council could no longer afford to ignore. The panic within the Council grew with each passing moment. Military leaders demanded action, but their attempts to mobilize were met with disastrous results. Every fleet they sent to intercept the humans was destroyed with the same ruthless efficiency. And yet, despite the overwhelming force they faced, the humans never attacked indiscriminately. They didn't target civilian populations, didn't seek to destroy entire planets. Every strike was precise, calculated to cripple the Council's military infrastructure without unnecessary collateral damage. In the midst of this chaos, the Council finally received a message from humanity. It wasn't long, nor was it filled with threats or bravado. It was simple, direct, and chilling. Stand aside, or be destroyed. The Council, accustomed to long-winded negotiations and political maneuvering, was left speechless. This was no bluff, no empty threat. Humanity had made their intentions clear. They weren't here to play by the rules of the galaxy's politics. They were here to ensure their survival, and they were more than willing to dismantle the Council's power to achieve it. Debates broke out among the Council members, some arguing for immediate diplomacy, others for an all-out counterattack. But every option seemed futile. Their fleets were being torn apart, their military infrastructure crumbling with each passing hour. And still, the humans pressed on, their fleet drawing closer to the core systems with each strike. The disbelief that had once permeated the Council was now replaced with fear. How could this have happened? How had they allowed humanity to grow into such a formidable force without realizing it? Their arrogance had blinded them, and now they were paying the price. As the human fleet approached the Council's capital system, the final lines of defense were activated. Every available ship, every ounce of firepower was brought to bear in a desperate attempt to stop the human advance. The Council's finest commanders were placed in charge, their fleets positioned in strategic formations that had never failed before. But humanity didn't fight like the other species the Council had faced. They didn't rely on overwhelming numbers or brute force. Their ships moved with an almost predatory grace, slipping through the Council's defenses and tearing their fleets apart from the inside. It wasn't a battle, it was a massacre. And then, as quickly as it had begun, the human fleet halted. They had reached the heart of the Council's territory, but instead of launching the final attack, they waited. It was clear what humanity wanted. They weren't interested in annihilation for its own sake. They wanted the Council to understand one thing, that the balance of power had shifted, and humanity would no longer be ignored or dismissed. The Council, broken and terrified, finally understood the message. The Galactic Council was in chaos. The once unshakable body that ruled the galaxy with authority now found itself paralyzed, not by indecision but by fear. Humanity, the race they had dismissed for so long, had dismantled their defenses with such surgical precision that no amount of arrogance could cover the cracks in their power. The human fleet had arrived at the capital system's doorstep, but instead of the final strike, they waited, silent, looming, and in complete control. Within the Council chambers, the panic was palpable. They had always operated with the belief that they were the galaxy's ultimate authority, that no force could ever challenge their dominance. Now, that illusion had been shattered. The Council had no choice but to confront the truth they had long refused to see. Humanity had risen, and it was now they who held the galaxy's future in their hands. Desperate attempts at defense had proven futile. Every fleet sent to stop humanity had been obliterated. Every military strategy they relied upon had been rendered useless by the humans' relentless precision. Now, with nothing left to hide behind, the Council had to face the only option they had avoided for too long: negotiation. But this wasn't diplomacy as they knew it. There would be no bargaining, no middle ground. The terms would be set by humanity, and the Council would have no choice but to accept them. Wordlessly, a transmission was sent to the human fleet, an offer of unconditional dialogue. No one in the Council dared suggest resistance any longer. Their only hope now was to appeal to whatever sense of mercy humanity might still have. They had been wrong about humanity before, and now they clung to the hope that their miscalculation hadn't doomed them entirely. The reply from humanity came swiftly. There were no pleasantries, no formalities, just a single demand: the Council would surrender all authority over human territories and acknowledge their sovereignty. Any further aggression against humanity would be met with complete and total destruction. The Council, powerless and broken, had no choice but to comply. As the reality of their defeat settled over them, the Council members were forced to confront the consequences of their arrogance. They had believed themselves untouchable, had treated humanity as little more than an inconvenience, a race that could be dismissed without consequence. But humanity had grown in the shadows, honing their strength, preparing for the day when they would no longer be content to sit on the sidelines of galactic affairs. The Council had failed to see the danger in their neglect. They had ignored humanity's potential, believing their technological superiority and political dominance would always keep them on top. Now, they were paying the price for their hubris. And as humanity's terms were agreed to, one thing became clear: the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had not come to conquer. They had not come to impose their will on the galaxy or to establish an empire. They had come for one reason only: to ensure their survival, on their terms, and to send a message that no race, no council, would ever again threaten their existence. The message had been delivered loud and clear, and the galaxy had no choice but to listen. The council, once the most powerful governing body in the galaxy, was reduced to a mere spectator as humanity took its rightful place among the stars. The ships that had once patrolled the borders of human space, keeping them isolated and contained, were recalled. The council's fleets, once a symbol of their dominance, were now nothing more than relics of a bygone era. Humanity had changed the game, and the council could do nothing but accept the new reality. In the aftermath of the conflict, the galaxy was left in a state of quiet disbelief. Other species, who had once looked to the council for leadership, now found themselves re-evaluating their positions. Alliances shifted, old power structures crumbled, and in the center of it all stood humanity, a race that had proven its strength not through brute force, but through precision, strategy, and sheer willpower. There were no grand celebrations from humanity, no proclamations of victory. They had no desire for praise or glory. Their goal had always been singular: to ensure that they would never again be at the mercy of the council's indifference. They had succeeded, and that was enough. For humanity, survival had always been the priority, and now they had secured it, not just for themselves but for the future generations who would no longer live under the shadow of the council's disregard. The galaxy had been irrevocably changed, not through a war of conquests but through the quiet and methodical dismantling of the old order. The council, once so sure of its place at the top, had been reminded that no power is permanent, no species invincible. Humanity had emerged from the shadows not as conquerors, but as equals, demanding the respect they had long been denied. As the human fleet began its slow withdrawal from the capital system, leaving behind the wreckage of the council's fleets, the galaxy watched in stunned silence. The message had been sent, the terms accepted. Humanity would no longer be ignored, and the council, for all its power and arrogance, had been forced to learn the lesson the hard way. There would be no more underestimation, no more dismissals. The council had made the mistake of believing that humanity's potential was limited, that their place in the galaxy would always be beneath them. Now, they understood the truth: humanity had never needed the council's approval, and they would never again seek it. The era of the Galactic Council's dominance had ended, and in its place, a new balance of power had emerged, one where humanity stood firmly at the center, not as conquerors or oppressors, but as a race that had earned its place through strength, resilience, and the unwavering refusal to be cast aside. The galaxy had changed forever, and there was no turning back.